Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here today, and we're going to do a review of Samurai Jack Battle Through Time for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do a little bit of an overview and figure out what this game's all about. So this game is based on the last season of Samurai Jack, and it's essentially an alternate scenario to what occurs in that timeline. This game features most of the same characters and enemies and different situations that occurred in that series in the last season, but all kind of wrapped up into one tight, nice little package. The game is an action-adventure platformer with a few light RPG elements and a couple of Metroidvania elements. There is a certain amount of backtracking, but it's not really in the way you think, and it's more about just getting into it. So let's start gameplay. So the gameplay in this is an action-adventure platformer, but it's very story-driven, and the game requires you to make good use of understanding the combat system to get through it as well. Now, in my opinion, the combat is the funnest part of this game, and the combat is really where everything really takes place. The story elements are fantastic, and if you're familiar with Samurai Jack, like I am, and most of us around my age probably are, the game really does its job well, kind of mirroring that story. Now, being all crunched up into little bite-sized pieces, it's essentially an episode per level, or less in some situations. But it does reveal a lot of the cool story characters and elements and takes you place side by side with that story. Now, the RPG elements that exist in this game are pretty loose. There is a certain amount of upgrading and growing your character, and it's done through these blue and green currencies you see the enemies dropping. They're essentially an experience that you can spend on whatever abilities you want to. There's a wheel that has 3 different kinds of upgrades for your character: spiritual, combat, and physical prowess. But it's really up to you to decide whether you want more maneuvers and more combos or just more pure strength and health. This shop is pretty cool because it allows you a lot of variation with what you can upgrade, but you'll pretty much stick with the main sword. So let's hit combat now. So to really talk about combat, I wanted to start out with one of my favorite characters in this whole series, and that's the Scotsman. The voice acting for him is tremendous, and everything is done just like the cartoon itself. If you enjoyed all of the characters in the cartoon, you will really enjoy this game. The combat is reliant on a heavy attack and a light attack, and you have a dodge and a parry system as well. You can upgrade all of these maneuvers and add more combos and different maneuvers to your dodging, if you will. At first you have kind of a slide and then you can add a roll, but the game is really heavily reliant on your ability to just read the enemy, very much like Dark Souls. You will have to parry on certain enemy attacks as they're not dodgeable, and you will have to dodge on certain enemy attacks as they're not parryable. You really have to understand the combat to this game to enjoy it, and it is where the meat and bones truly are. Now, with that being said, I do have to mention the performance in this game is pretty spotty, and the frame rate is very inconsistent. It's kind of all over the place. And I know that's one of the things that this game got a lot of flack for in the beginning, but it really is because of the combat itself. The combat really does rely on very fast and active button pressing and very quick responses. This doesn't really bother me, but if this is an issue in performance for you, then I highly recommend just maybe checking this game out on YouTube. It's a very difficult game at first, and if you get frustrated with the game not really complying or being friendly with you, then this may bother you. I enjoyed the combat and I consider it the best part of this game, but I can see how it may be a problem. So let's hit the story now. So the story in this game follows very closely to the final season, if you will, of the series, but it is almost like an alternative history, if you will, that parallels it. It has a lot of the same events and characters, but it is laid out a little differently, and the story is unique to itself. It's very well done, and it really is a fantastic encapsulation of the whole final season, if you will. But it is something you have to be aware of. It is not exactly what you'd expect if you're not familiar with the series. It's not going to start at the beginning and tell you everything important. This is really truly a finale of the story itself, and it's just very well done. The only other thing I need to mention about the story is that it is an original piece from Genndy Tartakovsky, the original creator of Samurai Jack. And if you're familiar with his work, you know he has a certain element that always is his signature on said work. So, if you enjoyed that element and you enjoyed that stuff growing up, it's all here, folks. It's absolutely glorious in everything it has to offer. So let's do controls and audio. So let's hit audio first, as I'm going to show some off in a minute. All the voice acting is fantastic and the music is great, but I do have to mention that sometimes the music cuts out at weird times, and sometimes you should expect it to be there and it's not. So it has some weird bugs and weird elements to it, but everything about it is quality in terms of the cartoon itself. I enjoy it, but go ahead and take a listen and tell me what you think about it.
Escape from this place and return to the past to destroy you once and for all.
Pretty good if you ask me. Whether or not they're the exact same characters acting this or not, they did such a great job that I'm not arguing. But I do have to mention the controls in this game, as they run like a PS2 game. Yes, you have full camera control and that's pretty awesome, but they can be a little bit wonky and a little bit difficult. If you're familiar with action RPGs, it shouldn't be that different for you though, and you'll get used to it very quickly. So let's do graphics and animations now. So in the graphic and animation section, this is going to be a little difficult, because for me, I really enjoyed this and I think the game looks fantastic, but the performance is so spotty that it could very well be an issue for a lot of people. The game looks and feels like a PS2 game, and it's really not the highest quality. It's almost just above an indie game, I'd say a AA game maybe. But the game has a great feel to it, and it really does look and feel like a Samurai Jack cartoon. The game was built on Unreal Engine 4, and I do expect a higher performance out of it, but I don't expect any more patches anytime soon. It's been out for a little while, and although I have the Japanese copy of it, it doesn't have any differences from the limited run version as far as I know. The game is fantastic for what it is, but be aware when you play this, the performance in it, your graphics and animation quality is not what you're going to get in terms of a new release. This is going to look last gen to most people. This is a great game in my opinion, and I'm happy enough to have what it is, considering I didn't think I'd ever even see Samurai Jack again. But it is something you need to be aware of, especially if performance is an issue for you in games. This game is a bit choppy. So, let's hit conclusion now. So in conclusion, this truly is a blast from the past for me. This series is one of my favorite cartoon series of all time, and Jack himself is one of the greatest heroes that could have ever existed. I love everything about him and the elements in which he portrays himself. He is the stoic hero that always holds on tight to finish up what he started. The game is well done enough in my opinion to get through, and it does share the story very well. Performance is an issue. It has to be mentioned over and over and over in this, because it will be a breaking point for a lot of people. But if you need to go back and experience what we grew up with, there is no better game that really highlights the emphasis of the early 2000s and some of the cool cartoons we got back then. Well, thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.
It's over.
Where are...
Jack! Jack!
Ashi? Where are you? Ashi! I am here! Ashi! I must be getting closer.